Hey there, welcome back to the Steel City Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 candidates for the MVP award. Per DraftKings Sportsbook, we're going to be looking at who has the best odds to win it this upcoming year. And if you haven't followed the channel, if you didn't watch me at all last year, we're going to be doing weekly the MVP ladder, where we go through and talk about the top 5 players in the race for MVP. So I thought it'd be fun just before the season starts to look at the preseason odds here. So I'll go through them and say how likely or how unlikely I think these players will win it. So with the best odds to win this year's MVP, we have Patrick Mahomes at plus 700. At number 2, we have Joe Burrow at plus 750. Number 3 is Josh Allen with plus 800 odds. 4th place, we have Jalen Hurts at plus 1,100. And at 5th place, we have Trevor Lawrence plus 1,500. So an interesting stat that I think for the NFL MVP award is look at the last 5 MVP winners. They were all the 1 seed. So you have to be on a team that is going to be the 1 seed. I think at the lowest, the 2 seed. To win this award. This doesn't go to guys on random, wild card teams. This goes to typically the best player on the best team. So, 2022, this past year, Mahomes won it. They were the 1 seed. Rodgers, in both his back-to-back years, the Packers were the 1 seed. 2019, Lamar Jackson won it. They were the 1 seed. In 2018, Patrick Mahomes, they were the 1 seed. So looking at these 5 that DraftKings has supplied, we can already eliminate, I think, 2 or 3 guys right off the bat from being the 1 seed. And I think number 3, Josh Allen. I don't see the Bills being the 1 seed for one particular reason. They are in a hellacious division this year. You look at the Dolphins, I think are a playoff lock for this upcoming year. You have the New York Jets, who just acquired the back-to-back MVP, Aaron Rodgers. And even though the Patriots, I don't like the construction of their roster, Belichick is probably going to at least take 1 win away from Buffalo just because of his scheming and defense alone. And, division games are always tough. So that right there, just for the fact that your division is so difficult, you're going to lose you're probably going to split at best case. I could see the Jets and or the Dolphins sweeping the Bills, especially in the early games. I think they're going to win because we know Buffalo's had a lot of locker room chemistry issues this offseason. So Josh Allen, I think he's going to have a really good year. They could this could even be their Super Bowl year just because I think they're starting to get underlooked around the league because going into last year, they were the overwhelming favorite to win the Super Bowl. That's no longer the case. So they could be in contention for the Super Bowl, definitely. But for Allen to win MVP, I just think it's too unlikely with how good that division is. I also think you can, for that reason, cross Joe Burrow off the list because, again, another crazy good division. I've seen multiple rankings ranking the AFC North as the best division in football because all the teams in the the AFC North, they're all viable to make the playoffs. If any of those teams made the playoffs next year, you would not be surprised. And the Bengals, they haven't been the 1 seed in the Joe Burrow era, so I think it's very unlikely for them to do it for kind of the same things I said about Allen. That brings us to Mahomes, Hurts, and Lawrence. Out of those guys, I think Jalen Hurts has the best chance to be the 1 seed because not only is his team the best, they were the 1 seed last year, but also they're in the NFC. He's in the NFC. The NFC is by far and away the worst conference in the NFL right now and means he's going to have more wins. Their schedule's definitely not as easy as it was last year, but there's still a loaded up roster in the weaker conference, so it's going to be easier for him to be the 1 seed in his conference. So I think that's a big positive. And he just finished as second place in the MVP voting last year. And had he not gotten hurt, I think he would have had a really solid case to actually win it last year. So I think Hurts is a pretty good bet there. Patrick Mahomes has the highest odds. Now, I would say there's voter fatigue. However, Aaron Rodgers went back-to-back in 20 and 21. So it's not like the NBA where you have to just be, insane. Although, obviously, we know Mahomes is capable of just destroying the statistics. So I guess that's a bad argument, but we have seen voter fatigue in the NBA. I don't think it's as big a thing in the NFL. Interested to see that if Mahomes can go back-to-back because he certainly has the talent. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's probably something we should do for a separate video, but I still don't love the construction of this Chiefs team. If you listened to me last year, you know that it was a big reason why I wasn't so big on the Chiefs this past season was because I didn't like the construction of their defense specifically, and I didn't like the weapons they had around Mahomes. I think now the conventional wisdom is to not bet against Mahomes. But being the 1 seed, Kansas City is always live to do that, but if we're just strictly looking at divisions, they have the Chargers to play against. I think the Broncos are going to be far more improved with an actual competent head coach. I have my issues with Sean Payton, but going from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton is going from like an old beat-up rust bucket to a brand new Mercedes. Like, you can't even comprehend how much better Denver is going to be. Even if Russell Wilson is really washed, Sean Payton's going to be the guy to clean him up. And so that brings us to Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, for me, he's my pick to win MVP this year. And I think with the 5th best odds at plus 1,500, I think this is the best value bet to win MVP. And I'll give you my case now. You look at what he did from year 1 to year 2. He went from a touchdown interception ratio of 11 to 17, flipped it to 28 to 7. So he went from a negative ratio to a 4 to 1 just after getting a competent head coach. He's going to be another year older. That means another year better, and another full offseason with Doug Peterson as the head coach, who I think is one of the most underrated head coaches around the league. Also, what we brought up with all the other guys with the divisions, he's out of the 5 guys, he is in the weakest division by far and away. The AFC South, you could argue, is one of the worst divisions in the NFL. Tennessee was kind of a dumpster fire last year. I think that they're an overachieving team over the past 3 years just because the genius of Mike Vrabel. But I have been a big critic of the construction of Tennessee's roster for a long time. Houston, they just picked 2nd overall, so they're clearly in the midst of a rebuild. They're kind of a mess right now. I like where they're headed, but they're clearly long away from really starting to win games. And then you have Indy, who I think is interesting, but similar to Houston, they just drafted a quarterback in the top 5, so it's like you can't really put much stock into Indy, although I do like a lot of their defensive pieces. I just think they're a long way off on offense, so I think that Trevor Lawrence has the best case here. He's in the easiest division. He has the easiest schedule out of the 5, and he's going into his year 3. We've seen plenty of guys pop in their year 3, so I really do think Trevor Lawrence is the pick here. I think the Jags will be the 1 seed this year. I know that might be a bold take to some people, but look at how good they were in the second half of last year. They were incredible. Trevor Lawrence was, you could argue, statistically the best quarterback in the NFL in the last couple games of the year. And they had one of the greatest playoff comebacks of recent memory in the playoffs, where Trevor Lawrence was essentially flawless in the second half of that game. So let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Who's your pick for MVP this year, and do you have a dark horse you want to throw out there? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Thanks for listening.